Found more riveting and more nauseating, truly nauseating, was the House Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs for Inter-American Affairs. And I saw two great congressmen, two great Americans, have to sit alongside of a mental pygmy by the name of George Crockett, who is the chairman of the committee, sit next to Stephen Solars, sit next to Les Aucoin of Oregon, sit next to several other members of the House, including Pete Kostmeyer of Pennsylvania. Now, mind you, I'm giving you my opinion. Make no bones about it. But it is my opinion that outside of Congressman Dornan and Congressman Connie Mack of Florida, we are represented on that committee by mental midgets at best, and in some cases, Marxist socialists with strong communist leanings. If you saw what I saw, if you heard what I heard, you could come to no other conclusion. Les Aucoin of Oregon, clearly, whether he knows it or not, in his heart of hearts, is an absolute socialist, a Marxist. And yet he continues to get reelected to Congress from, of all places, Portland, Oregon. It's amazing. But it's more than amazing. It's disturbing. It's frightening. And ladies and gentlemen, those of us, and there are a couple of others, I can't claim to be the only one, although some people say I was first, those of us who say by the year 2000, this country, as we have known it, will cease to exist. When I see the lesser coins in the United States Congress, I say it must be true. Not because he obviously doesn't approve of our form of government, but because there are enough people who keep re-electing him. Those lefties, those mental midgets who sit in office, do so because you put them there. Oh yeah, Mario's coming in. Mario never was out.
I didn't think he was.
No.
Well, just a whole game on his part.
No, his magnificence was never really out.
Anthony, why is he so much against the death penalty?
He says he's against the death penalty because it's cruel and inhuman, cruel and unusual punishment. And I suppose until and if something happened to a member of his family,
right,
he will continue to be against it. That he says that's the reason. My own hunch, and I could never prove this because I can't see inside his heart. My own hunch is that he really knows that the death penalty is warranted in many cases, but he doesn't want to lose the stamp of approval from the left wing.
Right. I mean, you're talking about cold-blooded murder that takes part in the New York area. It just amazes me, and these people go to jail. And
you see, here's what's going to happen. I make this prediction flat out. He is going to emerge as the nominee.
Right.
And then his arrogance, which is supreme and which he can't hide. Somebody said to me last week at a dinner where I spoke, someone said, you know, Bob, you're right. Mario is arrogant, but aren't they all? Well, maybe most politicians are, but they do a better job of hiding it. It doesn't come out of every pore.
Right.
I watched Il Supremo interviewed one-on-one by John McLaughlin, and his arrogance was, you could drown in his arrogance. And I think that will translate in a negative fashion to the American people.
Yeah, I think so. So once you need to start going out.
You know, he's a bully.
Oh,
he is a bully. By nature, he's a bully. Actually and verbally, he does what maybe he did as a kid. I don't know if he was a bully as a kid, but he has the nature of a bully.
Now, Mr. Travis, being a black man, could sit there and listen to yourself.
Too bad he's not here. Look, Bill.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. If I'm so bad, why do you subject yourself to listening to the show?
I do because...
I'll tell you why. Because you've got nothing better to do. You're there on welfare. You get everything handed to you on a silver platter. You couldn't get arrested. You couldn't carry a real job. You're not a real man. You're just a little two-bit coward who calls up on a telephone.
Your mother may be a welfare.
Ah, cut that out with the mother stuff. That's all his people know. Mother this, mother that. They're obsessed with mothers. Interesting thing about Bill is he's the biggest mother of all. Hello, John.
Hello, Bob. How you doing today?
Don't give me that how you doing. Did you just hear that last conversation?
Jack Lippman, the lawyer defending him. He defended the killer of Bonnie Garland, who hammered to death this poor girl in her sleep. And this Richard Herron, because of the techniques of this Jack Lippman, was only convicted of manslaughter because he impugned this girl's honor. He made her seem sexually promiscuous, and because of that, this guy is eligible for parole. He took a hammer and killed this girl. And now we have almost an identical set of circumstances in this Newton Chambers case. And Bob, I think we're going to get a similar verdict, unfortunately.
The cards are stacked, and it's beginning to look like a replay, what with Littman, what with the Catholic Church, which has become a joke. After seeing Archbishop Gumbelson of Detroit testify at the subcommittee hearings on the justifiable death of Benjamin Lindner, I'm beginning to think the Catholic Church in this country is absolutely ludicrous. It's a joke, absolute joke. Listen, I thank you for the call.
Not me?
Yeah, if you're Sal, it's you. Yeah.
Hey, Bob. God bless Connie Mack, Congressman.
He's great.
Bobby, did you see that Crockett? Calling Dornan Donahue.
Yeah, he called Dornan Donahue.
And then,
And the guy, you know, he's really a dope, that Crockett. He likened, what disturbed me about him, he likened socialists and communists and Marxists like Lindner going to help Ortega. He equated that with civil rights workers going to Mississippi in 1964.
Yeah, I love that. I love when he said that. And how about the mother? The mother's the biggest phony going.
Well, yeah, the mother is, and it's a rare day that you can't be sympathetic to a mother who lost a son, but I can't be sympathetic to her. And Connie Mack was saying absolutely the correct thing. But
beautiful. But
even more outrageous, see, Crockett is just a dumbbell who really wouldn't be there if he weren't a black person in a black constituency. They just keep re-electing him even though he has no intellect at all. But he didn't disturb me as much as Les Aucoin of Oregon did.
Yeah.
He was really disturbing to me. Also, Pete Kostmeyer of Pennsylvania. These are two lefties.
I'd like to go to jail. I could smack him once, just once. Kostmeyer.
Well, it's too bad that their constituents
Let me ask you a question.
keep them in their seats. Yes.
Stubbs? The guy from Massachusetts? How you pronounce his name?
A guy from Massachusetts?
Yeah. Is it Stubbs?
Oh, Jerry Stubbs.
Is he a homosexual?
Yes.
That's the guy. They got two. They got Bonnie Frank. He's one. And Teddy Weiss is three on that. You ain't going to say that. I'm saying it.
Okay.
Then Ted Weiss, the congressman from the Bronx, I read today that he is proposing a bill that would give minority status to lesbians and homosexuals and any other kind of degenerate. And it's H.R. 709 is the bill number. I just thought, what kind of creep is this guy?
Well, he is a creep. There's no doubt about it. He got hysterical when we rescued our students on the Grenada. Hysterical when we attacked Gaddafi. But unfortunately, the people of the 20th Congressional District of Manhattan keep re-electing him.
In Nicaragua, if they want to be there and help those people.
Why can't we what?
Let them stay in Nicaragua. They don't want to help our country. I mean, they're out there helping the leftists and the communists. Let them stay.
Well, Lindner's staying there.
You know. If you get my drift.
Yeah. Well, Lindner wasn't the only one. There was a couple of thousand who are down there. They are leftists. They are Marxists. They are enemies of the country of their birth.
Do you like?
But these thugs down in Nicaragua, there's not even
Not even idealism.
Not even a hint that there could be any idealism there. We know what they're about. We know the record of what has gone on, and we also should know that it's right here in our own hemisphere.
Damn right it is.
So I say, let there be more Ben Linders. Hooray.
God bless him. Like I said, if we can make them all martyrs, that's all right by me.
I think Lindner got exactly what he deserved.
I was on Bluefield the opportunity to attend a...
Well, I was only addressing my remarks to those people on that House committee. Dodd and Weicker, unfortunately, are in the United States Senate.
Yes, fortunately they're in this state also. I had the opportunity to attend a question period with Mr. Dodd. The opponent wasn't allowed to come. And I had asked him why he opposes the Contras. And what he said basically was that he felt most of them were Somoza puppets, but he felt that negotiation was the way to go. And I had asked him as a follow-up, what makes you believe that you can negotiate with Marxists and have them abide by their agreements? And what he said was basically in 10 minutes, I felt that all he said was that through his meetings he didn't feel that he was a Marxist. That wasn't a Marxist government.
Well, what is it then?
That's what I tried to get out of him, but he just, he talked in his political way.
I mean, how does he explain away the fact the Soviet Union has made the, next to Cuba, next only to Cuba, the Nicaraguan military, the mightiest in the Western Hemisphere, exclusive, of course, the United States. Huh? What does he have to say about that?
He says that the Soviet Union are supplying them because of the pressure that we're putting on them.
Oh, it's us.
Yeah.
I see.
Isn't that all right?
We're at fault.
Yes.
They're just trying to defend themselves.
Exactly. The United States is at fault.
I see. In other words, long before Ortega was getting help from the Soviet Union and arming his country to the teeth, we began doing things to topple him. I see. It's only we're the bad guys.
That's right. Another thing that...
What a disgrace that twerp is. What a disgrace. Well, it confuses you because you're trying to find some logic in the activities, in the statements, in the policies of people like Les Aucoin of Oregon. And I can only say this. And I've wrestled with this problem, and I've asked myself the same questions you have. Because I, too, just like you, Kevin, am looking for some answers that I can not necessarily agree with, but at least live with. And the best I can come up with is to say that these are individuals who, somewhere along the line in their early training, or maybe a little later in life, somewhere along the line, got the notion that communism, socialism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, you take any one of those three, was really the wave of the future. And although they themselves never would say to their constituents, I'm really a Marxist, they would never come right out and say that, they betray that they are Marxists at heart by virtue of policies that they support at home and their inability to recognize or to act as though they recognize the conspiracy abroad. And I'm not...
But also, if I may, afterwards, I want to comment on something I heard while waiting. In any case, you often ask, after the corruption scandals, why the people in Queens always vote Democratic? Especially after Gertie Lipschitz, why they elected a Democratic person after her. Basically, like I've often been tempted, I'm a Democrat, I voted for Reagan, but at local elections, I've often been tempted to vote Republican. I agree with the economics to a degree, but every time I thought of it, I thought of the social program that I have daughters, and I don't want to elect anybody who would restrict their right to an abortion if they wanted. I don't want prayer in the schools.
Well, most of the Republican legislators in the state of New York are not about to rescind are not about to overturn the Supreme Court decision. Are you aware the Republican members of the legislature are pro-free choice?
Well, I wasn't aware of that, but like when...
But I mean, as long as abortion, you're worried about your daughters having abortion. That tells me something about you. What do you think, they're going to get knocked pregnant?
No, it's just that I'm for freedom, and I don't...
You know what? You sound like a AAA Cicola to me. Here's a guy, ladies and gentlemen. He's worried about who he's going to vote for because he's got daughters, and he wants them to be able to have an abortion anytime they want.
The basic thing is, I don't like the fact that they might want to get one, but I don't want the government to say they may not have one. Also, to me, if you want to go into it a little deeper, I've thought about abortion a lot. It seems to me objections to abortions are on religious grounds. And that I can see that if there are other points of view that say that human life begins possibly later during pregnancy. And therefore, to forbid abortion would be to establish the religious concept of the religions that say that say human life begins at conception. To me, this is not the government's business.
Is it the government's business to prosecute a murderer?
Yes.
Okay. To the anti-abortionists, when you take life, you're taking life, even if that life is unborn.
I understand their position. What
Okay.
is basically,
all right.
When does human...
So don't say that it's religious. It's not necessarily religious.
But it's a religious concept as to when human life begins.
No, no. As a matter of fact, let me ask you this. You say you have daughters. Do you remember when your wife was carrying?
Yes.
Do you remember her ever saying, let's see, your name is Richard, as I recall.
Yes.
Did she ever say to you, oh, Richard, I feel life?
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember that?
I remember saying I feel...
Where were you, out on the road while she was pregnant?
She felt the baby, you know.
No, she felt the baby. That's what I mean.
No.
I mean, what guy in this great big Bob Grant audience doesn't remember his wife saying, oh, he's kicking, feel, put your hand right here, honey. And the guy pull his hand back. That's life in there. What are you talking about?
It's life.
What do you think it's? I have to laugh. Women say, I have a right to do with my body. It isn't their body they're doing anything with. It's a body within their body.
I agree with you.
Now, I'm saying this even though I'm pro-free choice. So what kind of freak does that make me?
Bob, let me make it possibly a little...
I mean, you get me all upset for giving this phony reason why you keep a corrupt Democratic Party in office in Queens. You make me laugh. You're a joke.
Bob, can I say one more thing about this?
Yes, you may.
If, I don't deny it's life. I'm talking about when it's human. I wouldn't...
Oh, it's not human life. It's life, but it's not human life.
I wouldn't object to setting up a scientific standard.
You got a poodle in there.
Oh, I'm sorry?
Never mind.
In other words, if you could have a test, a scientific test to say when the fetus develops, say, brainwaves, to me, I would say, okay, that's human, and you can't abort it. But to say...
In other words, if they have brainwaves...
In other words, there's a difference to me between a fetus with brainwaves that's developed to a certain point...
All right, what are you going to do when and if they come out with their ability to detect brainwaves? How do we get off on this thing anyway? I got to get out of here. Richard, I thank you for the call. I think...
A funeral is a juicy news film. We're told he was the Reverend W.B., our name of Our Lady of Loretto in Hempstead. At the cemetery, another priest in Roman collar banished a, quote, good riddance to bad rubbish placard. A Casey friend scuffled it away from him. The cops broke up the consultation. All this in the plain sight of Mrs. Casey, a marvelous woman, take our word for it, and family. And as we said, quote, compassion, unquote, is highly selective thing nowadays. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that these jerks, clearly should be defrocked. They have no business operating as priests. Not that priests are that special.
Oh.
At one time, I used to think they were.
What about their leader?
Well, their leader is a big jerk, and I've called McGahn a big jerk over and over again, hoping to smoke him out so that I could tell him to his face that he's a jerk.
Right, I agree with you.
It's an absolute disgrace. Look, even if McGahn and his stooges and his gang, even if they had deep reservations about William Casey's philosophy and William Casey's activities,
right,
that had no place in the funeral of William Casey. Had no place at all. And if McGahn really felt that way, he should have done the honorable thing. I hesitate to say honorable because obviously Honor and McGahn are total strangers. But if he had even a shred of decency, he would have said to Mrs. Casey, I know I was your husband's friend. I know I knew him throughout his life, but I cannot officiate at his funeral because I feel that there is nothing to be remorseful about in his passing. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Bob.
What really disturbs me, Bob, is that you rarely ever criticize this administration that has been operating a shadow government to government, okay, when the American public only elected one. I just don't understand that.
You're right. The American public did elect one, And that one has been having a tough time in trying to do things because of the idiocy of the Boland Amendment, which is not even operative anymore.
It certainly is operative.
It is not operative at the present time. Where the heck have you been?
It's the law of the land.
It is not.
It certainly is.
It is not.
It was at the time.
Ah, it was at the time. Okay. Why did you say... Hold it. If you knew it was at the time, why did you say it is?
For a moment, it escaped me, okay?
All right. So it escaped you. You sound like President Reagan. For the moment, it escaped you.
Okay. But when you look at it, the man was breaking the law, and he was operating...
The man was breaking the law. You know, I tell you something. Not only do your adenoids get on my nerves, but the one-track mind of yours gets on my nerves.
Why is it one track?
Because every time you call, it's the same diatribe.
Because it's not a diatribe.
It is a diatribe.
The problem is that you don't criticize him.
Well, why should I be a phony and criticize a guy if I don't feel that criticism is warranted?
Because it's a Republican administration.
No, it isn't because it's a Republican administration. There are enough people like you to criticize a Republican administration.
Personal, Bob.
The fact of the matter is, I think the Boland Amendment was idiotic, counterproductive, self-defeating, and if it were such a great piece of legislation, I think it would have still been on the books.
But, Bob, that was the law.
The president himself is not confined by that law, according to constitutional experts, with one exception.
He was a member...
Hey, God, Samato, and this guy's going to... Okay, I'll tell you what. You tell me what you want me to say, and I'll say it and make you happy.
I just don't understand why you're not forthright, because you consider yourself a very honest talk show host.
Well, I think I am being forthright, I'm telling you.
In certain areas.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't have to flash...
Party. You criticize the Democratic Party, and they should be criticized. But the Republican Party, you take a back seat.
I'm not talking about the Republican Party.
What's that?
You're the one with the Republican Party on the brain. You're the one concerned with the Republican Party.
That has the microphone, Bob.
Is Warren Rudman a Democrat, pal?
Republican.
Okay, he's a Republican. You know that he has asked more tough questions than any senator on that staff?
Absolutely right, but that's what you should be.
Okay. So what more do you want?
Well, I just don't understand.
I do a program. I'm not in the United States Senate.
I know you're not.
Don't get me confused with someone in the United States Senate or the House of Representatives or any government official. But don't get me confused with them.
You're a voice in this area, Bob.
I'm a voice. Well, what I believe, I speak.
Yes, but you're defending an administration that's been breaking the law and running a shadow government.
I'm not defending this administration in doing that. I've been more critical about Ollie North, Richard Secord, people like that than anybody I know.
In a very nebulous way.
Hey, Sonny, I got a great idea.
No, don't.
Listen to another program. Will you get off my phone? Stop listening if you want to suffer so much. And by the way, I know a great adenoid doctor. Dr. Donald Wiseman up there on Park Avenue. He's great for adenoids.
Bob, I enjoy your program, Bob, but I think...
I'm glad you do, Sonny. I'm glad you do.
You know, you're the only host that really gets the adrenaline going.
Well, that's good. Then you won't have to see your urologist.
But it bothers me that you don't take a position when you should. That's what bothers me.
I tell you what, Sonny. I tell you what, we're having a little trouble behind the scenes here. Why don't you come on board as my advisor? You could write my editorial views.
I would love to have a talk show with you.
You would?
Yes, I certainly would.
You would. You're probably a retired millionaire.
No, I'm not. I'm not retired. I'm close to a millionaire, but I'm not retired.
See what I mean?
But I'm not retired. I'm very active.
Yeah, what do you do?
Bob, it bothers me that you don't take a fair position.
Sonny, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Well...
I'm a radio commentator. I told you what I did. What do you do?
I'm an executive.
Why are you ashamed of being an executive?
I have my own company.
Ooh. Hey, I should be nice to you. The rate I'm going, I might hit you for a job.
Anytime, Bob, but you got to be fair, you know?
Yeah, you got to be fair. Okay, Sonny. I know what fair to you might be unfair to the next guy, see?
Bob, if this was a Democratic administration...
I'd be beating their brains out, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
Why don't you do that to the Republicans?
Because I'm trying to balance the scale. There are too damn many Democrats around here. I'm just trying to balance the scale, okay? Thank you.
By the voting.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
One of America's most outstanding criminal attorneys. He is defense attorney Barry Slotnick, defending Bernhard Goetz in the much-publicized Bernhard Goetz trial. And you've got to be feeling tired, Barry, but also you got to be feeling pretty good.
Well, I should always have a witness like James Ramseur. Unfortunately, they exist. I become a little shoe-shy, as you may understand.
Yeah. Did you feel intimidated at all when he was glaring at you and shouting those epithets at you and took off his shoe as though to throw it?
No, I wasn't intimidated. I was angry. How dare he impugn the majesty of the court? How dare he sit there and use his F words and his tongue and his language? It was disgusting.
Well, knowing you, Barry, you must have observed the reactions of the members of the jury.
Oh, they were absolutely aghast. When he reached down to take his shoe off, and he took his shoe off, and he raised his hand, and the four court officers practically pounced on him, and a court officer threw himself in front of me. The jury was absolutely aghast. They realized what Bernhard Goetz was looking at on the day in the subway.
You know, I tell you, I know this all happened very spontaneously, but you couldn't have written, it would seem to me, as a court watcher from way back, you couldn't have written a better scenario for your client than you had on that day.
One of the courtroom journalists who's been covering the courthouse for about 20 years told me he's never seen as emotional a day as that day. And he's never seen the courtroom histrionics just come out spontaneously. But you know what it is? When you have a vicious animal in a corner, he's going to eventually lash out at you. And that's what Ramseur was and still is.
What about Judge Crane? What kind of I know it's impossible to read juries, probably impossible to read judges, but surely Judge Crane must have been visibly moved by that, too.
Judge Crane was shaken, and as a matter of fact, he got me somewhat angry, because he turned to Ramseur and he said, James, why are you doing this, James? Just a few more questions. He tried to coddle him. He tried to mollify him. At that point, I got up and I said, Judge, I object to this. How dare you allow him to impugn the majesty of the court and be rude to me and the prosecution and everybody else around here? And then the judge understood what he had to do. And today I understand he sentenced him to contempt of court.
That's right. He sentenced him to 6 additional months and $1,500 or $15,000 fine.
It doesn't matter. We'll never see the money. 6 additional months means nothing. The man now has 7 years till he sees the parole board for the rape, robbery, and assault of poor Gladys Richardson. So, you know, it all is for naught. This whole prosecution is for naught, and the city of New York would have done much better by spending its money elsewhere.
Yeah, speaking of the money, do you have any idea what the prosecution of this case is costing the taxpayer?
Oh, I would assume well over $500,000. Based upon the various courts that it's gone to, based upon the investigation, based upon the witnesses, the manpower, the detectives. Right now, there are detectives scouring the city of New York, speaking to friends of Bernhard Goetz, trying to get little facts on him. I know that for a fact. We get calls from his friends every day. Desperate people do desperate things. I guess Robert Morgenthau needs to feel that he can convict Bernie Goetz, even though he doesn't have a case. And it's shameful. One witness took the stand and lied through her teeth. Fortunately, my investigators had her on tape when she was telling them the truth.
Now I think you're talking about this woman who wants to be a police officer?
You got it. And suddenly it came out that she knew, the DA knew that she was going to become a policewoman, and the whole story changed. And there was nobody surrounding Bernhard Goetz anymore. And when I played the tape to her, and I said, by the way, you met my investigators yet. Do you know that when they spoke to you, they were wearing tape recorders? She almost dropped her teeth.
And I think you brought out in that cross-examination that she had been told that if she wanted to get that job on the police force, she should be a good prosecution witness.
Well, I indicated that her motivation was that she was aware of the fact that the DA might be instrumental in helping her get on the police force and advance thereon. It's something that we shouldn't talk on a Friday afternoon as we go into a long weekend. I hope I can forget the Goetz case after it's over and let everybody forget that it even occurred, because it's another blot on our system. It's got representing real criminals.
It's got to be a draining experience for someone to do what you're doing. Now, you're going to justifiably, understandably relax over the weekend.
Relax?
Aren't you going to relax?
I'm going to be working all weekend. I hope next Friday to start my summation and get this case over with and let Bernie go back to work where he belongs and out of the courtroom. Remember, Judge Crane was the judge that threw out the indictment to begin with, based upon his reading of the grand jury testimony and simply saying that on paper couldn't believe Canty and Ramseur. So certainly I think that there's a possibility.
That's Barry Slotnick. And they say that the drama in that courtroom exceeded even the most dramatic scene you would see in a motion picture or a teleplay. The only difference being is real life. James Ramseur is a real monster. And how Judge Crane could talk to him as though he was a little schoolboy being fidgety in church is beyond me. Now, James, I tell you, with so many individuals lacking couillons, it's really, really a tough thing to try to stand up to this mess. Every now and then somebody comes along with the couillons, like a Barry Slotnick, and they stand head and shoulders above everybody else. We'll...
A Sandinista. I consider myself a Sandinist. And I think the goal of us Sandinists should be to create a union of Central American socialist republics. And, you know, we've had capitalism for 100 and some odd years. And
no, you haven't really. By the way, where are you from?
I am from Puerto Rico. I'm a Puerto Rican communist.
You are not a Puerto Rican communist. You wouldn't know a communist if he sat on top of you.
Oh, come again?
Exactly. Exactly. You wouldn't.
Yes.
You don't have, not that I think communists are brilliant, because they're not, but you obviously lack the intellectual wherewithal.
Well, I mean, do conservatives have the intelligence?
Well, there are some dumb conservatives, some smart conservatives. Maybe you're a dumb communist, but you sure are dumb. First of all, they haven't practiced capitalism in Central America for 170 years, and that is the problem. They have had... You want to learn something, or are you afraid you might get educated and then you can stop being an idiot?
Mercantilism.
The fact is they've had a feudalistic state in Latin America up until recently.
Well,
so feudalism has been the problem, and it's being replaced by democracy. It's being replaced by capitalism.
No, because the U.S. keeps just, bashing the heads of...
Well, listen, I have a great idea for you. I know a guy can fly you into Nicaragua, okay?
Nicaragua.
He can fly you into Managua.
Yes.
And as you get off the plane,
yes,
you have to have one of those maracas, and you have to come down the gangplank singing, yes, Managua, Nicaragua. Get off my phone, you communist creep! You think I'm going to spend 2 seconds wasting my time with you? Hello?
So badly for the graduating seniors. They had given the university a list of people they wanted to speak at the graduation. And then some committee chose Jean Kirkpatrick, and she was invited and accepted, which is very prestigious for the college.
Certainly.
So the students were furious, and they were very sad. Number two, I felt sorry for the parents. Some of these parents have shelled out $70 grand, and it makes them feel like they're getting their money's worth when they come to graduation and they hear an important person like Jean Kirkpatrick. And a lot of them were very upset. I also felt just sorry for the college, because not every college can get someone like Jean Kirkpatrick to accept a speech and an honorary degree. They also had Paul Volcker there, and the economics department, I presume, was picketing Paul Volcker's attendance for one reason or another.
I tell who did they settle on? The Berrigan brothers?
Well, I'm sure the Berrigans are in attendance all the time.
Oh, the Berrigans would have been acceptable. David Dellinger would have been acceptable.
Absolutely. Well, I went to
Abby Hoffman would have been acceptable. Any America basher would have been acceptable.
Gregory is also very acceptable. The only person who spoke was the chairman of the board of trustees. He got up and apologized. He felt terrible. He really abused the faculty, and rightly so, because he felt that there was no tolerance for opposite points of view.
I'm surprised they didn't try to get Johnny McGann, that guy with the backward collar that has the nerve to call himself an archbishop, who desecrated the funeral of William J. Casey. I'm surprised they didn't get him. They would have loved him.
Well, perhaps they would have. I just wanted to let you...
Or how about Posner? How about Vladimir Posner from the Soviet Union? They would love him.
I'm sure they would love Congressman Torricelli, too.
Oh, well, okay, listen, Richard, thank you for the call.
If we don't support the Contras and stop them that way. And that's the logic that's there behind, the very basic logic behind those of us who do support the Contras, not because they're particularly good guys, though I think that they're better than they're painted sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. The left seems to paint others into a corner where the person being painted into the corner has got to establish that the people he's supporting wear halos. But Ed Asner doesn't have to explain that Daniel Ortega wears a halo. He just blithely goes ahead and solicits funds and supports for the Sandinistas, doesn't he?
Well, I think it's ridiculous, Bob. That's very true. And day before yesterday, when Undersecretary of State Elliot Abrams was testifying, and it came down to my time to question, I introduced into evidence for the committee 3 letters signed by 3 different congressmen, Congressman Dimely, Congressman Conyers, and Congresswoman Schroeder, who were, in those letters, soliciting funds in Schroeder's case for the Sandinistas, or an organization that was to provide support for the Sandinistas, and in the other 2 for leftist guerrillas inside El Salvador. And my main point of this, and what I asked Abrams about, was just to demonstrate that there are officials of our government, members of Congress, out there actively seeking private fundraising in support of the other side.
Il Supremo, that alleged possessor of Il Coglione Grande, I'm still waiting for Il Supremo to fire Carolyn Pitts. So far, he's avoiding it like the plague, hoping guys like me will forget it. But forget about guys like me. I'm not important. You, the people, are important. And you, the people, if I can believe my mail, have not forgotten it. Far from it.
That Koppel was taken over by the freaks. I mean, they were running that show.
Well, they had a couple who really shouldn't have been on the show, but, yeah.
It was pretty sad, the whole thing. I watched it for an hour and a half, and I gave it up.
Yeah, that's about what I did, too. There were a couple of individuals on the panel that I just couldn't take. As a matter of fact, I felt if I watched them any longer, whatever diseases they had, which probably were innumerable, would have come right out of the screen at me. You know, I not only wanted to have on a pair of rubber gloves, I wanted to put on a giant-sized condom, which would cover me from head to foot. Encased. We should all be encased. Walk around in condoms. Oh, that would make C. Everett Koop tickle to death.
The other item, Bob, that relates to that Tony Award show last night. Something occurred in that show that made me stand up, and I wanted to put my fist through the boob tube.
You mean a communist skunk?
Fiscal Mime Group. Did you get them?
No, I don't watch award shows, whether it's the Academy Award, the Emmys, the whatever.
Well, have you ever heard of...
I can't stand these self-serving egomaniacs.
Wing diatribe. These were 2 of the left-wing maniacs.
All right, who were they?
They were 2 people from the San Francisco Mime Company. They do mime work.
Oh, I hate mime. I hate mime. I feel as though every guy that's doing mime is really suffering from a spastic condition.
What came out of their mouths was pure Marxist. And it was an absolute intrusion on that whole program, and as far as I'm concerned, destroyed it.
I understand what really made it all the more objectionable were the political morons in the audience applauded.
That's right.
Country needs. And yet we sat here and we watched it for 2 hours, and all we watched were sorry to say, a priest. Morgan Fairchild was supposed to be an expert who's nothing but an actress. Harvey Feinstein, who I wouldn't even care to listen to, and then Ted Koppel had to come back and kept excusing himself and saying he'll come back and bowing and scraping to this fella. Plus the audience in Los Angeles, which was about 95% gays. I swear the panel and the entire audience was a set-up audience. It was a disgraceful show they put on.
I think it was a self-serving circus. Very disappointed.
Yeah.
Very disappointed. It was just a hype. It was just a cheap hype. Shame on Koppel. Shame on ABC.
I think it was a disgrace to ABC.
Yes, it was.
To ABC to pass a comment, but when you call, the lines were continuously busy.
Oh, this is ABC. Yeah, it's good.
Well,
engrossing, I would have wound up staying up all night. And you know, I can't take the pomposity of Ted. By the way, you know, he has the strangest... He should never come out from behind that desk. Because there's this great big head on this little teeny body.
Well,
and his head is getting bigger, and he's getting more hair. I don't know what it is. I think somebody's got a tire... what do you call it? A pump. Inserted in a certain area of the guy, and they're blowing him up. But all the air is going to his head. I'm Ted Koppel. I can't think.
Not? Why isn't Howard Baker?
Howard Baker is not a member of the Select Committee. He's not on the Select Committee. He's not working as a United States Senator.
But he's on the...
What do you expect him to do?
Now, isn't he? Now he...
You know, you're making no sense. You know, you're an absolute jerk, an idiot, a dumbbell, and a creep. Get off my phone. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
How are you? I got to put up with Mike of Kenilworth, and you ask, how am I? Listen to what Peter Lofredo of Manhattan has to say. Here's a real fan letter. Dear Mr. Grant, I am writing this letter to you as the first step of a formal protest of your radio show. Simultaneously, I'm writing to the sponsors who advertise on your program to announce a boycott of their products by me and as many other people as I can influence to follow suit. I have listened to your program for over a year now while commuting by car, having stumbled upon it while switching the dial one day. At first, I thought I had discovered a new shock humor comedian to replace Howard Stern in that time slot. When I realized that you were serious and that many of your callers took your views to heart, I became quite alarmed and have been monitoring you ever since as a way of measuring for myself how extreme the extremes are in this country. For a while now, I have wanted to try and do something to protest the destructive thing you're doing. I'm going to continue with this letter, but first let me analyze something for you. Let me point something out to you. When a listener is listening, they say they're listening. But when they're out to get you, they're no longer listening, they're monitoring. You get the difference? Peter V. Lofredo switched from listener to monitor, just like that. And isn't it interesting that he's afraid because I'm serious? And he's even more afraid because you, the audience, or the people who call anyway, are also, for the most part, serious. In other words, what he's really afraid of is not me, but my views and the fact that so many of you seem to agree with my views. He is the essence, the absolute essence of the liberal hypocrisy that I have been inveighing against. Free speech is fine, but heaven to Betsy, is that guy for real? And if he is for real, and he's not saying what I think he should say, then we must remove him. Let's get back to his letter. I know that you have been labeled a racist, sexist, homophobe, right-wing conservative many times by many other groups with labels who oppose you. To me, however, it is not what you are, but what you do that is upsetting. You foster hate, divisiveness, and ironically, labeling. And you encourage people to indulge their worst instincts because you and they are frustrated by a perceived powerlessness. Not only that, you are cruel and rude and hostile to people in a way that is ordinarily disgraceful, but even more so because you are a model voice for others. Now, let's analyze that a little bit. He correctly states that I've been labeled various things: racist, sexist, homophobe, right-wing conservative. And I guess he realizes that the labels don't bother me one bit. And he says it's what I do that is so upsetting. He says I foster hate. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't foster hate. But I ask you this question. Prior to my advent on the airwaves, was this city, was this state, was this country, was this world devoid of hate? You mean to say you can trace the onset of hate simultaneously with the beginning of the Bob Grant program? You mean to say that prior to my program, there was no hate? Let's go on to another chapter. What do you hope to gain for yourself or society or America by calling other human beings mutants? and instilling in your listeners the false idea that by simply getting rid of the sick people in our world via jail, execution, or bombs, we would be better off. Mr. Lafredo, if you're listening, the answer is simple. What we have been doing has not been doing the job. We have been digging a deeper hole for society. Let's get back to his letter. Don't you see that what makes it possible for one human being to kill another is first and foremost the process of dehumanizing the other, making him or her the enemy or the target or someone not like me? Mr. Lafredo, I want to tell you something. They are the enemy. They are the target. They are not like me. I am not a murderer. I am not a bank robber. I am not a rapist. I am not a criminal. And neither are most of the people who listen to this program and call this program. What these people are, and it's really these people you're attacking by your attack on me, what these people are decent citizens who are trying to survive in a world we make increasingly more difficult and more dangerous by virtue of the fact we have been catering to those mutants. Back to his letter. Quote, you can kill every rapist, murderer, or every Colonel Gaddafi that comes along, but as long as you don't stop and ask what's wrong with my brother that he would do this, I know where this jerk is coming from. What's wrong with my brother that he would do this, and what's wrong with me that I can't help him? Help a rapist, a robber, a killer? Help Gaddafi? You idiot. Then he says you'd better be prepared to keep on killing because they'll keep coming back. Page 2. You bemoan the lack of respect. I hope you're paying attention because I want to spend the rest of today's program talking about this letter, talking about me, talking about what this jerk is saying. You bemoan the lack of interest, or you bemoan the lack of respect for authority these days, yet when you talk about our governor, our mayor, political candidates, etc., you go beyond criticizing their policies and viewpoints and resort to adolescent name-calling like Il Supremo, the Emperor, and Jesse Jerkson. That's very sophisticated political commentary, Mr. Grant, really. That's why I initially thought you were a comedian. If you weren't serious, you'd be funny. Then this long, self-serving, pedantic paragraph. What are you really in favor of, Bob Grant? What is your positive philosophy? In a year now, I've only heard your anti-philosophies, like anti-communism, anti-liberalism, anti-civil rights, anti-affirmative action, anti-ACLU, on and on. You've attempted to align yourself with the likes of William Safire at times, but Mr. Safire, also on the so-called political right, espouses ideas and principles. And although I frequently disagree with his views, I respect his intentions and integrity. You, on the other hand, are empty philosophically and malicious in your intent, even to the point of degrading and humiliating people who take the time to call you. You hopelessly try to separate yourself from other people as well by trying to encourage your devotees to believe that the problems in today's America and today's world are not your fault or their fault, but the fault of the liberals. Don't you know that whatever the world is today, we all have taken part in it, actively or passively? Perhaps, though, the one piece of reality that you and your fans have a genuine hold on is your awareness that you are a dying breed. You long for, quote, good old days, unquote, when blacks and women knew their place and homosexuals stayed in the closet and the Marines were proud to be unquestioning killers, and those who were homeless, unemployed, or disabled were either ignored or gotten rid of. Perhaps, as you so frequently point out, the liberal establishment as such goes too far, too soon in attempting to counter the iniquities of the past. But their force, their movement is towards a humane existence for all and sanity. Where is your movement heading? As is always the case when societies struggle to progress, there are those who are left behind because they are frozen, paralyzed by their own anger and negativism and fear of change. There will be a new age, Bob Grant, and some will inspire it while some will resist it. A necessary balance, perhaps. You appear to have taken your stand, and as such you will be left behind. I feel compelled to do what I can to see that you are. Sincerely, Peter V. Lofredo. And this guy wants publicity because he says, P.S. If you have the testosterone you so frequently claim to, feel free to write back to me or read this on the air with or without my name. Hey, would you please send the evidence to me? I'd like to do an expose.
Well, I've read a lot of different things about it.
Oh, really? Of course you have.
It has proof of this, and that they're supporting this, and it seems kind of ironic that we're supporting...
Where is your proof, my friend?
Well, I've read in different articles.
Yeah, you've read... Is that proof?
Well...
Would you be impressed if I told you that there's also many articles suggesting that the Sandinistas have been involved in drug trade? Would that impress you? Of course it wouldn't. Because you wouldn't want to believe it. Because you're a nothing gavon. That's why.
But listen, can't you listen to what I'm saying?
I heard what you've said. I said, do you have any proof? You said, I read different articles.
You really think
I mean, this is what we've sunk to. Vinny of Brooklyn calling the Bob Grant show. I read different articles.
You really think...
I think you're a lowlife. That's what I think. All right, I had to kill that, but you're still on.
Oh, I'm still on.
You're still on. I'll give you another chance. You want to use that kind of language and stay on the air?
I like to go on.
I mean, are you such a lowlife you had to resort to that word?
Well, how come you're such a lowlife you have to resort to...
But isn't that interesting? I don't have to use the language you use, the gutter language.
Hang up on
the gutter language a filthy swine like you would use.
Well, how come you call people jerks? Is that...
Well, jerk you can say on the air, but the word you used you can't.
Republican can't get out of something. They call people jerks.
Listen, I'll tell you what I'd like you to do. There's a speech teacher on 12th and 6th Avenue. And you go to him, and in about 5 years, maybe, if you work hard enough, maybe you'll be able to call this program.
I'd like to ask someone...
Let's have a little exercise here.
Someone else was complaining that on a police test that...
Now you're going to a police test.
Blacks get extra points. Well, how come the federal test veterans get extra points? I guess my job...
What is your job?
I work for the post office.
He works for the post office.
Yo, how come a lot of veterans work there? Your favorite wonderful veterans work there. I guess I should call them stupid.
Yeah, I like veterans, but I don't like you. What did you ever do for your country, you little twerp?
Well, how come veterans get extra points then? And I shouldn't call them stupid, I guess.
No, you shouldn't call them stupid.
Well, then how come you...
By the way, do you know how to spell stupid?
I certainly do, Bob.
Let's hear it.
A lot brighter than you'll ever be.
Yeah.
By the way, that letter was right on the money.
I knew you'd like it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it, Bob, because you're an idiot. You love putting people down, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about most times.
Oh, really? Here's a guy who calls us, what are we going to do about the Contras selling drugs? Well, I want some proof. I read several articles.
The only reason
I mean, you could find articles on anything and everything.
They're afraid that Guatemala's going to be taken over, and there goes the big businessman. Because there's plenty of businesses down there. That's the only reason we're fighting.
Yeah, well, you have nothing to lose, so you wouldn't care. Hello, Mo.
Yeah, hi. I must say, that fellow Lofredo there who wrote that letter to you, he seems to be the typical person who makes up Mario Cuomo's voting base. I'd like to speak about the disastrous policies of Mayor Koch.
All right.
Well, some of them.
Yeah.
Of course, Mayor Koch is the city's head con man. As are most Democrats in this city, parasite-loving Democrats who punish the civilized people who vote with their feet, and businesses are leaving the city also. Well, the Midtown Chamber of Commerce, they're suing Mayor Koch to try to stop the insane policies of housing the homeless in productive Midtown. Mayor Koch's latest plan now calls for a 300-bed facility just about 4 blocks away from 2 of Donald Trump's investments.
Yeah.
Mayor Koch has long been called a very vindictive person, while 2 of his arch enemies are Donald Trump and Ruth Messenger. Ruth Messenger, well, on domestic issues, she sticks up for the victims of Mayor Koch. And 53rd Street and 10th Avenue, where this facility is planned, is Ruth Messenger's district. Now, as you know, you might have read I assume you read in the papers that Mayor Koch is working the city from both sides. On the east side, there's a house for the homeless. It's an apartment house on First Avenue.
Why are you rambling like this? I mean, what did I do to you, Mo, that you should call and ramble like this? I mean, what?
Well, because I'm sending...
Can you focus on one thing, or do you want to destroy the program entirely? What do you want to do?
Well, I'm sending a message that it's not safe to walk in a 3-block area of a midtown
Yeah, but it's safe for you, Mo, because you pack a rod.
Well, that's true, but I don't always use a rod to get out of trouble also. If you stop for a traffic light...
Have you ever thought of, what is it, Pierre, South Dakota, or is it North Dakota?
Bob, if you stop for a traffic light in an area...
How about Bismarck?
Say a hotel. They got a new gimmick now.
This guy is...
will walk over to your car and ask you for a dollar bill for 4 quarters.
Really?
Yes. And the sucker who falls for this trick, he takes out his wallet or his roll to comply. You know, he wants to think that he did something nice for a black. And then, of course, the black takes his whole roll. The crime in the Midtown area has gone up tremendously since Mayor Koch, this moron, has subscribed to the theory that it's best to put the welfare hotels in Midtown.
Well, that's right, Mo. I have to move on. I thank you for the call. It's now...
Because I was wondering if it was on your show that I heard that she claimed to have a degree from Brooklyn College, or what...
Yeah, you heard it on this program. Number one, they have no record of her attending Brooklyn College. Number two, the degree she claims she has, that course is not offered at Brooklyn College.
Right. Well, if my memory serves me right, I think the mayor had an aide that was fired over the very same reasons, because he claimed to be a college graduate, and such a stink was made.
Yeah, you're talking about Mr. Botkin.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that enough reason to get rid of this?
Oh, sure, except she's got that protective pigmentation, you see.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show...
if you notice, Il Supremo, who is her ultimate boss, Il Supremo, doesn't want to touch this with a 20-foot pole. Did you notice this great leader, Il Supremo, this great macho, two-fisted, tough guy, he's afraid to say 2 words about it.
Yeah.
And I'm so disappointed that the good folks who listen to this program have not written to Il Supremo and demanded that he fire that racist skunk, that lying racist skunk.
Well, Bob, tonight I'm going to sit down and write him a letter.
Then he'll get 2, one from you and one from probably some lady who's listening to us right now. He's governor of the state, and right now he's turning his back on the majority of the people of New York by avoiding a very sensitive issue. I'm going to use their words. He's showing an insensitivity to our concerns.
That's true.
And Carolyn Pitts has shown gross insensitivity in addition to her gross racism, and in addition to the fact that she was caught in a big lie. Okay?
Thank you.
Carolyn Pitts had been white and said all blacks are racist. Cuomo would have dumped her so fast the head would still be spinning. Now the story is dead. It's off the front pages. In fact, it's not even on the back pages. And she's still on the state payroll. Have you heard of anything that's happening with this situation?
The only word I have is that Cuomo doesn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, and his whole attitude is the people will forget it and let it pass. And he's not interested in justice. He's not interested in what is right. He's interested in what is politically expedient for him. See, he's not really, to put it bluntly, he's not concerned about the white majority. Not concerned about it. He doesn't have to worry about it, because people aren't really up in arms about it. They think it's okay that Caroline Pitts is a racist and stays on the public payroll, apparently. Waves.
Yeah, but Bob, isn't the black vote a minority in this country?
Well, it is a minority in taken by itself, but when you add it to the gavons who think Il Supremo is great because they like some joke he told at Gargiulo's, or because they feel sorry for a guy going around with bags under his eyes, or because they're at heart New Deal semi-socialists themselves, that all adds up. It goes into the mix.
You know,
I didn't say that. I didn't say that was one of the... I didn't say that was the reason the ratings are number 1. I said that it's probably because, disagree or not, people know that they're going to get an honest shake on this program, and they're going to hear viewpoints that my so-called colleagues are too pusillanimous to utter.
Well, I guess my feeling...
Now, take you. You obviously disagree with me. That's what you're leading up to.
Oh, well...
But you're listening. I don't care whether you agree or disagree. I don't care whether you like me or not. I do care if you listen. Yes, of course.
You've done a...
I mean, you sound like a little pipsqueak, like a little putrid pipsqueak.
It's really a terrible situation, and I don't know how the states let them continue to operate.
States not only let them, the states aid and abet them because the states are pusillanimous. You take the governor of the state of New York, Il Supremo, Il Duce, a.k.a. His Magnificence, His Eminence. He doesn't have the couillons, although I have a letter written personally to me from him in which he says he does have couillons, but he doesn't have the couillons to fire Carolyn Pitts. He doesn't even have the couillons to say, I think what she said, what she did was terrible.
Well, I'm sure she's probably graduated one of the...
No, she's got no degree. She claimed to have a degree from a school she never attended in a course they never gave. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. We have someone on the line who claims she got cut off. I don't generally do this, Horty.
Well, we were cut off. We had to be cut off.
We weren't cut off. We just ran out of time. And I didn't ask you to stay on the line, did I?
No, you said you're sorry, you have to go, and then you're...
Yeah, that's right.
Well...
What's so important you want to call back?
Well, I didn't get my point across.
Ha!
May I please...
Yeah, all America was waiting for you to get your point across.
This is it?
Well, yes, it is my business. You're my business, Ray, and I'll tell you why. Because you called me, didn't you? Yes, of course you did. You called me and you injected yourself into a discussion of this program.
Yes.
And you're saying some things that make me curious as to where you are from. Now, if you are ashamed of where you're from, just say, Bob, I'm ashamed of where I'm from, and I'd rather not admit.
That's what you are, a scumbag.
Where are you from, Ray? Ray hung up. Ray's from the West Indies, obviously, or some, who knows, maybe Nigeria even. But the interesting thing is he puts down this country, and yet he made sure he got here. He probably snuck in. He probably hid in a pile of manure, and of course, they couldn't tell the difference where the manure left off, and Ray began.
You have to be careful. You can't kill them if they're in your house. I think you have to wait till they go outside or something. Oh, dear.
No, just the opposite. You
can't... in the house, but...
if they're on the doorstep, no matter what, even if they're facing you with a machine gun, and you have a choice, either to let them shoot you or shoot them.
Yeah.
If you do shoot them first, make sure you drag them into the house.
In the house? Oh, I thought it was the other way.
No, you got to kill them in your house.
Leaving with something from your house.
And if they seem to be fleeing, no matter what they did, even if they raped your daughter, your wife, murdered everybody in your family, you can't do them any harm if they're in the act of fleeing. If it's established that you did them bodily harm while they were fleeing after they did what they did, then you're in deep trouble.
I see.
Isn't that sick?
It is very sick. It is so sick, and I was sick to hear what the judge said in the Goetz trial.
Oh, Stephen Crane, I hope you're listening, Judge Crane. You are a jerk. Move over, Judge Sand. You've got company.
Can we write to anyone?
Yes, write to the superintendent in charge of Creedmoor, Marlborough, Pilgrim State, all other mental institutions, and ask them who wants to take Stephen Crane. Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks.
Yeah, Bob, I tell you, we'll start off. We have to thank you, but we can't forget the guardian angels, right?
Now, I'll tell you this, Sliwa and company stood foursquare behind, with Bernhard Goetz from the beginning. They never wavered. Neither did Roy Innis. He never wavered, never once.
And I tell you, as American but foreign-born, I was starting to wonder if the system works. But I'll tell you, today, the other day was Flag Day, but I sure as you know what, the system works. I think we can hold our heads up, and I think it sent a message. Bob, thanks again for everything.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the first grand jury didn't even want to indict Bernhard Goetz, didn't feel that there was grounds for indicting him. But then Bobby Morgenthau's bosses in Upper Manhattan, in the 2-8 precinct and so forth, in that part of town, they said, listen, You want to continue being DA, you better indict that guy. And Herman Denny Farrell, who referred to them as children. I'll never forget interviewing Herman Denny Farrell back in early '85 after the shooting, and he said, "Well, you know, he shot the child." I said, "The child?" I don't know. Hello. Suppose you being either masochistic or incredibly brave,
what?
One or the other, maybe a little bit of both, you probably will subject yourself to America's great you-know-what station, first blah, blah, blah station.
Right.
Where their allegiance is clearly not to the United States of America, but to some entity that they feel is growing within our midst. I imagine they'll be playing funereal music or
they are.
beating drums. Since they can't play music, it'd probably be beating drums.
Bob, they sound very dejected. If they would only realize that this is really not a racial issue, our reaction is to crime.
Yeah, but to that bunch, everything is racial.
I know. I agree, Bob. Look, Bob, I'll write you and I'll talk to you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Only because Mr. Jackson and Mr. Farrakhan are going to be going nuts, saying how Bernhard was acquitted because he's white. Knowing Mr. Jackson, come on, he'll be on there.
Well,
the limelight.
He probably will be on. I'm sure Ted Koppel will do a special.
Oh, please, I can't stomach that guy.
Yeah.
He is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's getting more arrogant and pompous with his little spindly legs and his great big head.
That's why Jesse belongs on that program, because Jesse's as bad as he is. But I mean, I'm very happy for Mr. Goetz. Being in his position, I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing.
We're going to replay some of the excerpts of the exclusive interview. If nobody has come in to sabotage and erase that interview, like he erased a couple of others.
Oh, I missed it. I wanted to hear that, too.
Well, you listen tomorrow, dear.
Don't forget to watch Mr. Jackson and Mr. Farrakhan tonight.
It's the Abbott and Costello Show, 1987 version. I'm Ted Koppel, and this is my song. Okay, thank you very much. I tell you, I can't stand Koppel anymore. He's become more obnoxious to me than even Sam Donaldson. Hello?
They put him through the grinder.
They sure did.
Right, and I would have hated to be in that situation, and I really feel for him. But now, going through these two indictments and being clear to the charges, this leaves no question in anybody's mind.
Well,
the mayor, not the governor, not anyone else.
Well, as far as the governor is concerned, he's avoided the issue because he wants to continue rating ace high with all the right groups. As far as Emperor Flip-Flop is concerned, he's been on every side of this thing. So I think he'll check and find out where he was the last time, and that will determine where he goes this time.
Now, about 3 months ago, I heard one of these news commentators talking about Nixon's impeachment, saying there were millions of letters poured in when Nixon was impeached. But people don't know it was school children that had to do it, were forced to do it, more or less, as a part of their social studies by the Board of Education, working in cohorts with the news media, right? I don't think that's right, and they could do it to Ronald Reagan pretty soon because now they're brought up that. And I just want people to know how they go about it, that the Board of Education is pretty rotten to do something like that. And in case it would happen to Ronald Reagan, I'd like people to know that maybe that's just where it comes from the second time. They'll do the same.
Yes, of course. That's the basis on which they impeach. If they get 2 tons of mail from every school, they don't read the letters, they weigh them. And if they get 2 tons of mail, that's how they determine whether to impeach or not.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I remember during the Nixon impeachment, Peter Rodino said, let's roll that tape. Roll the Rodino tape. They got it ready. Okay, here it is. And we have, it's Peter Rodino, and we have 2 tons of mail from the Green Law School. Okay, thank you very much. What's on your mind?
Say that today because it's Hallelujah Day.
It is Hallelujah Day.
That, baby, and that's why I'm saying it. At least there's 12 people with some gray matter left in this world. And they acquitted Bernie Goetz.
And couillons. So that goes for the ladies on the jury, too. You know, there are times ladies have more couillons than men.
Well, my wife is Italian, Bob, so I know what you're saying. Happy to
Does your wife think you have culions?
Well, I love it. I really love it. Like you say, he needs a little target practice, that's all.
Okay.
From Memorial Day to the 4th of July, I leave my flag up, and this is the day for it to be outside. And I hope Mr. Kunstler is very happy today, too. Can you hear me?
All right, Carrie, thank you very much.
I don't agree with you, but by the same token, I want to tell you that I followed it as avidly as you did, and other people have. And I remember very well that Mr. Goetz was looked at as something of a psycho at the beginning, and he well could be called a psycho for what he did. But by the same token, he had one incident where he went up to 110th Street and got out with guns in his belt and looking for trouble. Now, he came down and sat on a subway train with a gun stuck in his belt, thinking it was another Bronson, and fantasizing like a jerk, and then committed this horrible crime. Now, it's a horrible crime because I don't care how scurrilous those people were. On the other end of the perspective, they were human beings. And it's a horrible crime because he purposely did it. He purposely went up and shot that man a second time, no matter what anybody says.
Yeah, you're an amazing guy. You knew he was fantasizing. I guess you were sitting next to him and you had the fantasizer-meter. You had a fantasizer-meter, and you hooked it on him, and you called them human beings. Apparently, a person qualifies as a human being in your book, whether he's a predator or not.
Well, predators, you carry that quite far. Predators...
No, they're predators. By their own admission, they were predators. Apparently, you didn't follow the case as closely as you claim you did.
I did. When your own Mr. Slotnick, who you like so well, even said that he fantasized in court, that was not to believe a tape. Imagine people sitting there looking at him saying, I did it. And
I'd probably get mad if Goetz had been convicted, but in view of the fact justice was done, and the jury was a lot smarter than you, all I could say is, you're a jerk and stupid and dumb. Hello, Bob.
Good afternoon, Bob. I don't really know how to put this except to say that I'm not at all pleased with the Goetz decision. I'm very frightened by the decision. I don't know what ramifications, if any, will come of this and how many kooks, white, black, or purple, are going to go on the trains or wherever with guns, packing guns. I think guns are just despicable. And I don't think that what he did was a correct thing. I think that the whole jurisprudence system, the whole system should be changed. Something is terribly wrong in this country. I think the white people, all of us, I guess, as a group, I have to say it, are furious, and rightly so, at all the crimes and injustices perpetrated against us. Things that we never did. We're robbed, we're mugged for absolutely no reason.
Well, maybe that's why the jury acquitted the guy.
But the point is, here's a man, we have no... I mean, he goes on a subway train. You and I could have been sitting there and could have been shot by some man who was walking with an illegal gun. I mean, you know...
You don't try cases on the basis of some hypothetical situation. You try cases based on what actually occurred. And based on what actually occurred and why it occurred, the jury rightly saw fit to acquit.
I don't... You could say that, Bob. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you how. The difference between you and me is I followed the case.
So did I.
You did?
Yes.
Well, you must have been following a different case, because if you did, you wouldn't say the dumb things you've said.
I didn't say anything.
But if you're so afraid, then pack up and get out of town.
Why don't you get out of town?
Why?
Sir?
Because I'd rather come into town and talk on the radio and be able to tell idiots like you that you're dumb. Just plain dumb. Get off the phone. I can't take it anymore. Hello, Ralph.
Hello, Bob. Bob,
she's afraid now. She's afraid now. What was she before? If she's afraid now, what was she before? Timepiece. Thank you for the call, Phil. That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Carolyn Pitts. You and your organization was barred by some black militants from entering a ceremony at Harriet Tubman High School. What's all this about?
Oh, well, it was not a ceremony, Bob. We were challenged to, as they called it in their handouts, the Great Debate. The Guardian Angels versus the National African Youth Student Alliance.
Where'd they come up with that cockamamie organization?
Well, better known as NAYSA. So the time was Saturday, June 20th, the place, Harriet Tubman School. We used to have a headquarters right around the corner, so people were very familiar with us there. The time was 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The topics to be discussed, obviously the Bernhard Goetz case, crime in the black community, the role of the New York City police, the role of black youth in the black community, and Attorney Alton Maddox in the Marlon Hansen case.
Oh, boy.
Now, you knew that we would be 180 degrees in reverse on every one of these issues.
That's what makes for a debate.
But, Bob, as you also know, I've never been known to turn anybody down. You name the time, you name the place, and I'll be there.
That's why I have nicknamed you Mr. Couillon.
Well, in fact, Bob, aside from that, I've been looking for the mail-order reverend of late on the trains. As you know, he supposedly has a youth patrol out there. And haven't been able to find them, nor the church that Reverend or mail-order Reverend Al Sharpton preaches from.
Well, he said he's got his full complement of people on the job, on the ball, and that they've been doing a job.
But Bob, remember, we took you out to that part of Brooklyn to ride the trains. There are no white people out there. I mean, his whole intended purpose of patrolling the trains was to protect black youths from overreacting white folks. White people don't take the trains out into Brownsville, East New York, into other parts. They take those express buses from the city. If blacks and Hispanics could afford it, they'd take the express buses also. Nobody wants to ride into those parts of Brooklyn. They asked that only 4 guardian angels be in attendance, and I complied to their rules. Myself and 3 black guardian angels from that very public housing project across from the Harriet Tubman School. Along with me were 2 Israeli reporters. Well, naturally, the moment they saw 2 Israeli reporters with us, the PLO nutnicks in the contingent were in a frenzy. They were going into catatonic shock. But anyway, they would not permit us to enter the school, even though we had been invited to debate. So what I did was I conducted the debate right outside on the front steps for the entire community to see, and what they thought would have pulled it in their favor was by having 30 or 40 blacks screaming at me, Sliwa, go home, Sliwa, go home, that others in the crowd would come to their aid, and there'd probably be a riot, and we'd have to stick our tails between our legs and run like bandits. But, Bob, you know, I've been up in that area for many, many years. The people from the projects were coming over. They were patting us on the back, thanking us for the work we've done in the streets of Harlem and in the subways, asking us for autographs, and essentially it made their whole attempt to preclude our democratic right at debate, a complete farce.
Huh.
But I might add that we debated the points of the Bernhard Goetz case, and we told them these 4 youths were cretins, were creatures. You know it. There's no way you can defend their actions. How, in Lord's name, could you prescribe a racial motive to Marla Hansen, the victim, the one whose career is probably in jeopardy, by being slashed by 2 blacks who were organized and masterminded by a white guy? How in the world you could prescribe her and pointing them out in a lineup to the fact that they were black? And we went through every one of the cases. Austin Weeks, the white priest who got shot by the black thug who was turned loose by a jury. We went up way, sideways, every which way for a good hour and a half. And the outcome did not occur as they would have liked. They would have hoped that those citizens would have been roused up in fiery racist passion and would have run us out on the rail. And it didn't turn out as they had hoped. No, in fact, the guardian angels showed up just with the 4 that they had asked. We stood our ground, and we are prepared to debate any of these yahoos, any of these rabble-rousers, any of these nutnicks who would have us tear apart the fabric of our society, turn black versus white and black versus black. In fact, it got to a point, Bob, the only reason I left is that there were some homeboys from the projects that I knew well who had come, and they're not guardian angels, so I don't have control over them, you know, the cool, calm, collected type. These guys wanted to go to blows against these 30 or 40 who were keeping us from the school, and I just decided rather than have black versus black, we would just return to the subway and continue on our Saturday patrols. And look, for the mail-order Reverend Al Sharpton and his diamond rings, because we figured somewhere in that dark, dank recess of the subway, the shine from those enormous rocks on his hands would lead us to the promised land. Remember that fateful night, but years ago in the midst of the Bernhard Goetz case when you had myself and the right Reverend, mail-order Reverend Al Sharpton in probably a debate to that definitely was like a volcano ready to explode. I noticed he's never accepted the invitations to appear anytime thereafter to debate the concept.
Well,
any place. And the one thing that Al Sharpton has to learn is that when you get involved in civilian safety patrols, as many others who have been members of your panels of discussion over the years who organize community programs will let you know, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat. I do understand because of his girth, he might want to find his way into the subways in the summer because it's a great sauna down there. But the fact of the matter is you have to be tenacious. This isn't like being a boxing promoter, Don King Jr. of the Civil Rights Movement. This isn't being like a mail-order minister. You've got to be down there yourself. It's life and death. And as you yourself, Bob, know, and having ridden those trains with the Guardian Angels, you make the wrong decision out there, and you're playing with people's lives.
And certainly, we hadn't intended to talk to you.
Taking money from communist front organizations connected with the Sandinistas. Two of the congressmen, by the way, were mentioned from this area are Robert Mrazek of Long Island and Samuel Gatenson of Connecticut. Now, I'm sure that the news media are going to ignore this story because they probably agree with the congressman helping the Sandinistas. What can be done, if anything, to blow the lid off what I think is a major national scandal going on here?
Well, when you talk about blowing the lid off, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think there should be, just like we have with the Iran-Contra thing, I think there should be congressional hearings, there should be special prosecutors involved here, and I think the news media should be featuring this story on page one and generating the kind of hysteria that they generate whenever they want to destroy somebody.
Yes, I agree. It certainly should be. It is an outrage. And it's part and parcel of a series of what the New York Post calls helping America's enemies. But clearly that is exactly what Representative Les Aucoin, who is one of the most communist-sounding individuals in the United States Senate, George Brown, whom I know personally and know that he is so far to the left his right arm doesn't work, Terry Bruce, Ben Campbell, Bob Carr, James Clark, Ronald Coleman. These are all left-wing jerks, together with I'd say about 20 others. Without a doubt, they should all be defeated at the polls. You see, that would be the most beautiful thing that could happen. However, every one of them will be reelected commandingly. We have this jerk, Mrazek, who has been running these campaigns in which he really has the people fooled. But why should he be any different than any of the others on that list?
I remember a few months ago, Mrazek was defending the Sandinistas, and he got so emotional in Congress that he burst out into tears. He apologized to the people in Congress for, becoming over-emotional.
And one of the most, a guy that I'll bet you has a photo of Daniel Ortega that he kisses every night before he goes to sleep is that jerk from Connecticut that you mentioned.
Gatenson, Samuel Gatenson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a relic of the 60s. For years, he refused to wear a tie in Congress.
Yeah, I wonder what he has under that dumb beard of his. I wonder what he's hiding under that dumb beard. Thank you.
I live in Massapequa, and we could use a few of those Guardian Angels over here in Amityville. It's getting pretty bad. And first, I'd like to talk to you about Jesse Jackson. What do you think about his involvement in the major leagues with what he's doing?
Well, I think it's consistent with everything else he does. I think it's absurd, it's divisive, it's blatant, it smacks of totalitarian steamroller tactics, it's extortionism, and it just saddens me that so many people are in such awe of this guy and give him all kinds of power which he really doesn't have.
I back whatever you say against him, and I love your nickname for him, Jesse Jerkson. And do you think Billy Martin's statements, what he said about Jackson, is true?
I think Billy Martin exhibits, once again, something that I've known about him for a long time. He's one of the few men in American life today with couillons, real couillons.
I agree. Think about Jesse maybe getting a nominee for the Democratic presidency.
Are you serious? Do you really think he would win the nomination?
I hope not.
No, wait. I didn't ask you what you hope. Do you really think he would?
No, I don't think he stands a chance.
I mean, if he did, then every Republican would throw a big party because it'd be the biggest Republican victory in history.
Right.
And it would be because a lot of Democrats would be voting Republican.
I see. I just want to...
I mean, how can you take him seriously?
I don't. I think he's...
What are you worried about?
I think he's a fool.
All right, thank you.
And I like when you make fun of him.
I'll keep doing it. Thank you, Francis.
All right, and I'd like, Bob.
What?
I'd just like to say hello to my favorite little kids, Larry and Cerise, all right? Thanks a lot, Bobby.
Hello, Jack.
Jack, this is Jack.
I gotta get out of here. I really do. I have to get...
I would think the sooner the better. You were talking about that you were going to lose your job.
I didn't say that. See, I predicted that people would misunderstand.
Yeah.
I predicted that.
Yeah, because I sure would be one jumping for joy.
Yeah, well, of course you would. What would you do for laughs, then?
A redneck cracker like you.
Hey, by the way, Jack.
Yeah.
Do you have any mirrors in your home, or have you destroyed all of them?
Have I got any news? Yeah.
Mirrors.
No, but
All right, I want you to punish yourself. After you hang up the phone, or after your keeper, takes the phone from you, go look in the mirror. You deserve it. Get off my phone, you creep!
I always knew that Ron Dellums hated everything that the United States stood for, or stands for, I should say. But the comments he's made in the past week or so proves that not only does he hate this country, but that he's a two-bit fraud and a hypocrite. He's called the Contras every name under the sun. He says we should cut off all aid to the Contras. But what he didn't say is what they really are, the greatest freedom fighters of the 20th century. Then he turns around and says that the anti-communist government of El Salvador should take these rebels that they're fighting into their government to make a coalition government. But of course, he never says that to take the freedom fighters in with Daniel Ortega. Then he says we should break off relations with the anti-communist government of Augusto Pinochet in Chile. And it wasn't for Pinochet throwing out Allende in '73, you would have had Cuban troops in Chile now. And of course, Dellums never criticizes Castro in Cuba. But his greatest hypocrisy is what he says about Africa. He's called the greatest black leader in the world today, in my opinion, Jonas Savimbi. He calls him and his freedom fighters in Angola a bunch of terrorists. Then he turns around and says the United States taxpayer should feed money into those so-called frontline states in Africa, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Now, all these four black rule communist governments are puppets of the Soviet Union. Then Dellums says we've got to overthrow the South African government, the worst government in the world, he says. But what he doesn't say is that blacks from these four so-called frontline states, they go into South Africa every day of the week for sanctuary. And if it wasn't for the government of South Africa open up their doors to let these blacks in, who have been slaughtered by these four frontline states, there would have been a mass genocide on the continent of Southern Africa. So as far as I'm concerned, this Ron Dellums has got his head on backwards, and he doesn't know whether he's coming or whether he is going. He's just a big fraud.
Thank you for the call, Carl.
All right.
Bob, I hope you will not dismiss me as some right-wing psycho or some person who is politically dead from the neck up. I am a solid two-party system man. Bob, the middle-class citizens of our country are an endangered species. Our First Amendment rights have been negated. As I sit and watch the totalitarian morons who have somehow gained political power in our country, the more I realize we must embark upon a series of assassinations of those in power who are killing our country, including some congressmen, some senators, so-called...
Nick, no wonder you said what you did. No wonder your preface, because I think exactly what you thought, except you go beyond. You're a loony bird. You're an absolute loony bird.
Well, I know.
And I'll tell you something, Nick. I personally, as a public service to the people of New York, will gladly take you. I will take you. I will escort you to the admittance room of Pilgrim State or Creedmoor, whichever you prefer. And I will see to it that you're admitted.
Look, why are they hanging you up?
And what I will do is play the tape of this very short conversation at the admitting counter, so that they will find you a rubber room.
Well, just let me...
Because you're liable to do yourself harm, Nick.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I am a certified, quite mentally capable person. As a matter of fact...
Capable of what? Capable of what? Who dialed this phone for you? Nick?
I thought you were part of it. You know, every...
Part of you? I'm not part of an organization calling for assassination.
About your country. I thought you sit here and you pontificate day in and day out about our country slowly...
Nick, you know what I want you to do? Do you have a gun? Do you have a gun?
What do you...
No, do you have a gun? Do you have a gun?
I have quite a few.
Okay, you believe in assassination? Okay, why don't you practice? Start out by assassinating yourself. Get off my phone, you sickola! Archdiocese of Detroit, now he's out here.
Well,
the Archdiocese of Detroit is a joke. An absolute joke.
And the pity of it is McGahn is allowing him to do it.
Well, McGahn wants him to do it because birds of a feather, my friend. Birds of a feather. What do you think, McGahn? McGahn is any less interested in furthering this leftist cause?
Of course not.
Don't forget, McGahn is such a leftist himself that he disgraced himself, his church, and dishonored what he's supposed to stand for by turning the William Casey funeral into a cheap leftist diatribe.
Right. And how about those priests who carried the signs, bury him in Nicaragua, and good riddance to bad rubbish? And those particular priests came right out of the Long Island Catholic Peace Fellowship.
Yeah, these guys, you know who they belong with? They belong with the Berrigans.
Exactly.
They're no better than the Berrigan brothers.
They should be all transferred to Poland for about 2 years until they find out what it's really all about.
Wouldn't that be great?